Member for Vieux-Fort North.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, it is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, when you listen to the member for Castries North, he often, Mr. Speaker, tries to separate himself from a government that has demonstrated over the last 4 years that they really don't have the best interests of the people of St. Lucia at heart. This motion, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the loan which the government seeks from the International Monetary Fund to assist with the COVID-19 situation. And the member for Castries North starts by saying, Mr. Speaker, that when he considers the state of emergency debate earlier today, he sometimes thinks instead of 4 months, it can be 2 months. So you can see what is happening. Softens the blow. He goes on to say, Mr. Speaker, that he would not be part of a government that is bent, as some members opposite, he says, tries to make people believe that the government is trying to suppress the freedom of people. And if that's the case, he will not be part of that government. He went on to say, Mr. Speaker, that he's not going to be part of a government that is not going to protect the rights of people and do the best for St. Lucians. It's his choice, Mr. Speaker, to say what he feels in his heart. But the actions of his government go directly against what he's saying. I didn't hear him talk about discrimination against parliamentarians on this side where the constituency development program is concerned. He didn't say he would not be part of a government that discriminates against parliamentarians on this side of the House. I didn't hear him say that suddenly the laptop program is very important and that children now can eat laptops. I didn't hear him say those things. So, Mr. Speaker, the member for Castries North is famous for doing that. It's not him, it's not me, it's them. I'm not in it. Mr. Speaker, this 29 million US dollars equates to about 77 million EC dollars. And what we are saying on this side of the House is that all of the recommendations of the International Monetary Fund seem to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that we should be concerned mainly about income support and welfare support. I'm not going to be very long, Mr. Speaker, but I will quote from the IMF itself to indicate the 3 priorities that the IMF believes should be the focus of governments with this kind of support. What we are saying on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, is that the government has not demonstrated that it is going to change course because of COVID-19, that it's going to do things very differently, and the member for Castries South has said it. He said basically that this is part of the seeking funds to fund the budget, and that they are not going to deviate from what's in the budget, and the intention is to fund their budget. Doesn't matter whether you have COVID-19 or not COVID-19, or no COVID-19. And if, Mr. Speaker, there are funds from the IMF, they will go straight back to funding the budget. So there is no change by this government. Whatever the government presented in the estimates debate is what they are doing now. There's no change, there's no creativity. The funding of bridges, concrete and steel, who gets direct awards? All of these things have happened, and the member for Castries North says, oh, I'm not going to be part of a government who doesn't do this for the people and that for the people. The evidence does not support what he's saying there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this disaster demonstrates that governments need to come together in dialogue with the people. And what we continue to say is this. If this government just a while ago reneged on an agreement with the National Trust, which involved the Attorney General, how can we trust this government now with $77 million from the IMF to say that they're going to help the people of St. Lucia? They have said so before. They came here in 3-4 different budget presentations and gave glorious presentations, made glorious presentations about helping the people of St. Lucia. And we saw what happened with healthcare. We saw what happened with so many of the projects. We are not convinced, Mr. Speaker. They have come here to say that they're going to help hundreds of St. Lucians. What happened to the Cabot? 30 million. Another $32 million in loans for sporting facilities. What happened to CHTTI? Where was the member for Castries North when the CHTTI, all of the issues around CHTTI, the Pomandu, $13 million. What happened to that? And where was the member for Castries North then? $24 million to a hotel in tax relief. Maybe the member for Castries North believes that was a good thing, so he could be part of that kind of government. And so, Mr. Speaker, these words of polish and flair don't measure up to the reality that this government cannot be trusted to deliver to the people of St. Lucia to deal with welfare priorities. I listened to the member for Babuno earlier on, and he spoke about what will be done for agriculture. And he said part of this money from the IMF will be used to help farmers produce. But he's the same member who came not too long ago to say that they have overproduced. That we have a problem. The problem that we have in St. Lucia is that we have too much food. But now he's going to use money to give farmers to produce more food. Contradiction. I don't believe we have too much food, but there's a kind of contradiction. And money to give farmers for seeds and so on. But yet, he said a while ago, earlier today, that the hotels are closed and the farmers basically don't know where to sell their food. So when you hear that kind of contradiction, when you hear these contradictions from members opposite, you know very well that the money from the IMF will not be used for what the IMF thinks it should be used for. Let me quickly, Mr. Speaker, I know the hour is late. The IMF produced many reports about the emergency funding to assist with the COVID-19. And if you go to the IMF site, International Monetary Fund, questions and answers, which the last update which I'm reading from is from May 20th, 2020. And the IMF discusses what countries can do and what countries should do. And the IMF indicates there are 3 priorities. The first priority is to protect lives. And this includes health expenditures. It should be at the top priority. Top priority, funding health systems, medical equipment, and so on. The second priority is to protect livelihoods. And listen to some of the ideas, some of the recommendations. Ensuring that lifelines for households and businesses are available during the period of the economic standstill. Cash transfers, wage subsidies, tax relief, help in unemployment insurance if possible, extending, increasing benefits, relaxing the eligibility criteria. Where paid sick and family leave is not among the standard benefits, governments should consider funding it to allow unwell workers or caregivers to stay home without the fear of losing their jobs during the epidemic. This is what the IMF is saying. That is what the focus should be on. And while we've heard the government speak about helping people, we are not hearing that kind of focus here. On monetary policy, the government is the IMF is talking about lending to small and medium-sized enterprises, lending, which may be less prepared to withstand a sharp disruption at this critical stage. I didn't hear the government speak about that. Lending to small businesses, all of those individuals with the small shops, and so on. The government's fixation is on the concrete projects which they had planned for before COVID, and instead of sitting back and reorganizing the plans for the economy in this COVID crisis, they have simply funded what they've always said they would do. There's no big creativity in that. And finally, the IMF said, priority number 3 is to prepare for recovery. So you can see clearly the focus is to ensure that the small businesses in particular, and when we speak of small businesses, we're talking about support so that those businesses can continue to operate, people can continue to be employed. We're talking about the bus drivers. We're talking about small farmers and fishers. And they're talking about, okay, you give support to the fishers by possibly giving them cash or giving them money. The IMF is talking about continued sustenance until the crisis is over. And so, preparing for recovery, according to the IMF, is now to talk about how do you prevent companies from going bankrupt? How do you cause companies to preserve their trade networks? And if you do that, the IMF is saying, you can recover sooner. But this is not what we're hearing. This is not what we're hearing. This is not what we're hearing. The relocation, what we're hearing is the relocation of the Boseju Agricultural Station with the money of the IMF. So, Famani pour savoir, l'argent ça la gouvernement joue par IMF, c'est ça qu'il fait puis. Relocation of the, it's on page 62 of the estimates. How you mean it's not true? It's on page 62 of, 612 of the estimates. Relocation of the Boseju Agricultural Station. Okay? The Agricultural Transformation Program, which is a program of the Banana Company in measures. The BAM. So now the IMF money has been married to the BAM. So there's no creativity there, Mr. Speaker. La bani pièce bagay neuf parce que COVID vini, yo ka changer. I see on page 613 of the estimates the Vieux-Fort water supply project from the IMF money. But I thought there was CDB money for that. On page 617 of the estimates, the Cul-de-Sac Bridge. I see the Opico Bellevue Road, so I'm wondering, it's a pity the member for Castries North has spoken. Is this a payment? Or has he decided to continue the project? Because it's there from the IMF money. Road improvement and maintenance, and the member for Castries North spoke about the maintenance of public buildings. He spoke about major rehabilitation of schools. The new National Hospital Commissioning. The Housing and Population Census on page 640 of the estimates. Now, Mr. Speaker, how does the Housing and Population Census end up in the IMF loan? On page, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeking explanation. And while the hour is late, the member for Castries, I didn't want to speak, but when I heard a member for Castries now saying, oh, we're doing very well, and this is good for everybody, and there's no problems, and so on, I have to ask myself, what kind of, in the karate movies, there was somebody for a long beard, they called him Skinny Guy, and some other name. That's the kind of role. What kind of thing is that? How does the Housing and Population Census come into the new IMF loan? The monies from the new IMF loan. So it's very clear that the government has simply taken the IMF loan and just funding its program. And while some of these are income generating, they are creating employment. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. But, Mr. Speaker, does it match what the IMF is suggesting? How is the government going to ensure that all of these small businesses, the people who suffered, will maintain their staff, which is what they're suggesting. Which is what they're suggesting. So what I want to say here, Mr. Speaker, is very, very simple. That this government has not demonstrated that we can trust them to use the money from the IMF to benefit the people as they should. We surely believe that the people need the money and they need support. But the projects that are down to be accomplished with this IMF money is simply the government's projects. It's simply projects that were already down in the estimates, and no creativity there. No creativity there at all. So yes, the people need the money, but we do not believe that the government should use the money for some of those projects that they have there. They should change some of these projects to cause the people to benefit. And wait for it, Mr. Speaker. The direct awards and most of the benefits, once again, for the FFFs. Wait for it, Mr. Speaker. So I hope the people benefit. I truly hope these people who have lost their jobs, the small businesses who have staff waiting to continue to be employed, I really hope these people benefit. But based on this government's record, I don't believe they will. We are hoping they would. I don't believe they will. And I look forward to the day when the member for Castries North will really act when he says he's not going to be part of a government that does this and that and this and that. I wonder what this government has to do. I mean, if he does not say, that's okay. He could just be part of the government and not say these things in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Be part of his government, enjoy himself, do his work as he says. Building roads, he said, all over the place. Governments continue to build roads all over the place and put potholes in roads all over the place, build 21 bridges all over the place. He can continue to do that. But when he comes to the Parliament to say he's not going to be part of a government who behaves like this and who behaves like that, as if he's very different to them, that is not so, Mr. Speaker. All of these decisions, they sit in cabinet and take those decisions, the state of emergency, all of those things. And so, he's part of the government. They are oppressing the people of St. Lucia. He's part of a government. They have decided to go for a state of emergency until the end of September. He's part of a government that continues to break agreements with National Trust or with the Attorney General. That's the government that he's part of. That is the government that he's part of. And whether his heart is not in there, it's a different heart, I don't know, I can't read his heart. As the member for Castries is always say. But right now he's part of this kind of government. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.